Good morning. I hope you're doing okay out there. Can you see across the street? What you're seeing is 30, 40 years of environmental policies that have handcuffed and hand-tied people from loggers, farmers, from clearing out overgrowth and undergrowth, thinning the orchards, thinning the forests. And so now, once fires start, they just burn. Same way with brush, just stuff, foliage. It gets out of hand. You can't go out and just deal with it anymore because of a bug or a bird or whatever. And so we got the whole state on fire pretty much every year now till we get all burned down. I just saw an article. It says all the progress that all our extra tax dollars supposedly accomplished to clean up our environment has all been lost just in one little sweep. Well, this is Lou Benninger, and you're listening to Live with Lou. If you stumbled across this or you just woke up from a night of tweaking out there in Olivehurst and Linda, this is Lou Benninger over here on Mount Huth with the Wikiman Santos Vigil, and we are in Yuba County. Hopefully we're praying and hoping for one day that this be called the state of Jefferson and we can cut the ties to Sacramento and all those down south, not because we don't like them, we just don't like their policies. We don't like to be managed by people that we don't have any say-so, right? It was used to be called taxation without representation. And we don't like to be just jerked around and have the policies of L.A., San Diego, Sacramento ruling over us up here in rural Northern California. So we're out here on Mount Huth in East Yuba County, and some of you can listen to us out there on the regular airwaves, as they say. So maybe portions of 4 or 5 counties. But if you can just barely hear us and you want to hear us better, you can go on kmycradio.com, KM like in Mickey, YC radio.com, and just click on the Listen Live button, and we'll hope that the live stream is working. And if you cannot listen, like some people say, Lou, we can't listen to you on Saturday, we're busy. You can listen to an edited version of the show. What I mean by edited is I'm not edited so much as some of the clips that I've included that are okay to run now are not okay to run on YouTube. So you could go to YouTube at the One Eye Blind Media channel, 4 separate words, One Eye Blind Media, and you can look for Live with Lou and then click on whichever show you want to pick up. So if you miss half the show, you want to go back and catch it, or you missed it altogether and you're interested in it, you can always go there and listen. So I want to give a shout out to my friends over in Idaho this morning. And those are, now we got 2 couples, at least 2. Actually, I know more than that, but I know that a couple of them, I don't know, did I tell you that someone texted me last weekend and said they're moving this week? They sold their house. And they're moving. And they're going to go fishing with the other group. And so they aren't going to live in the same town, but they got themselves a house, sold their house here, and they're out of here. They're part of the Tea Party and all that. Another Tea Party group. It's not coming quick enough to change around here, so they're on the move. So all you out there in Idaho, we'll give you a shout out. We're still over here, and we're on fire over here, and you don't have to smoke to get plenty of it in your lungs over here. It's coming on strong. Also, I'm going to give a shout-out to the Cannabis Club over there at Juvenile Hall. We now got a group that's listening again over at Juvenile Hall, and they're always wanting to know what's shaking. They said, Lou, I can't believe you even brought that up. So welcome, everybody. We're on for 3 hours. That's our routine, is we're here till noon. Today, you can call in, but we're not going to be able to answer the phone. We're recording this on Friday night because we both couldn't be here on Saturday, but it's fresh. We're not doing a rehash, leftovers, the best or the worst of Lou. This is new material, but we're just doing a few hours earlier than normal, and so you can't call in and give us a shout-out, but you could complain or give us a shout-out on on the answering machine, and I think the big kahuna listens sometimes because he tells me that he gets some feedback, so he must listen himself to your feedback. So I hope you're okay, because it seems like I was just talking to someone on the phone as before I came over here, and they said, Lou, every day all hell's breaking loose around here. Now, around here for us means Yuba and Sutter County. That's what we're most familiar with. But up and down the valley, I know you're all facing the same problems because I read some about it in your different newspapers or in maybe a state publication. You're all facing politicians that are overspending and they're paying themselves too much money. Then they turn around and they want to tax you more, right? And that's happened all up and down the state. According to the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, you can check into their columns at hjta.org. Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. If you're a property owner in the state of California, you ought to make a contribution to those folks because they got your property taxes cut way down back in the 1970s, and they stay down if you stayed in the same house. Since the 70s, you still got pretty low taxes. Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association say that politicians up and down the state are blaming everybody else for the high expenses except themselves. And then they turn around and say there's no way they're going to raise taxes, but we're just going to pay for police and fire. In fact, there's an article in the August 8th Peel Democrat talking about Yuba County. And Sutter County and Yuba City is chomping at the bit to do the same. Marysville pulled it off after a couple efforts a couple years ago. But Yuba County says they're going to use the money for public safety operations and others. Now, this is, want to hold this thought, other services deemed to be essential. Other service deemed to be. Have you ever seen a county expense that they didn't deem to think it was essential? Any county expense. We just found out that Scott Mitnick over in Sutter County gets paid almost $300,000, and he doesn't pay one nickel into his own retirement. Now, he deemed that to be an essential expense for somebody else to pay. And we're finding more and more of these top executives that they negotiated where you and I, many of you, don't even have much in your own retirement because you don't have enough to set aside. And yet, your taxes, they're forcing your taxes without your agreement. They didn't ask your opinion. You didn't get to vote on it. You didn't get to vote on hiring Scott Mitnick. Now, maybe Robert Bendorf over in Yuba County, he's got the same deal. Some executive gold parachute, somebody else pay my retirement, and I get to collect a couple $100,000 a year for the rest of my breathing days. So they say this is so slick and deceptive. We need this money. We can't protect you. We can't knock down the fire on your roof unless you give us another 1%, $4 or $5 million a year for the next 10 years. You think that's going to be enough for 10 years? I can guarantee it won't be. You heard it here first. I will guarantee you that another $4 or $5 million is not going to be sufficient to pay for these people's overinflated salaries and ridiculous pensions and health benefits that most of you in Yuba County and Sutter County that are paying for these things, you cannot afford them yourself. They're Cadillac plans. So they say that they're going to put a 1% tax on the ballot in Yuba County. Now, what that means is that they can use that money for anything they please. It does not matter what they say. And by the time 10 years is up, all the leaders that are pushing this through will all be gone. Did you know that? In fact, Sheriff Durfer is going to be gone this month. Rich Webb is going to be gone within 2 years. He's one of the top fire guys over here. Bendorf's going to be gone. Most of those supervisors are going to be gone. In fact, some of them may be gone in this election right now. And let me hear, this is another big old fat lie. The measure would also establish a Citizens Oversight Committee. Do you remember when the city of Marysville said that? Does anybody remember that committee getting set up? Now, they may set up the committee over here in Yuba County since they already said it here before God and everybody. But I'll tell you, that committee isn't going to have 1 ounce of authority. They could spend that entire $4 million on chewing gum. And that committee couldn't do jack diddly about how they spend their money. They could whine, they could complain, they could stomp, threaten, send certified letters. They just say, well, thanks for your input, no thanks. You know, that's kind of like the Sutter Butte's flood control agency, that they begged the population to vote for new levy funding and everybody to assess themselves, in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars a year for 30 years. And the Sutter County Taxpayers Association responded, forget you guys. You always bait and switch the money. You want to spend it for something else. So they said, well, how about if we set up a Citizens Advisory Committee to oversee our spending? And that went for a couple of years, went okay. And then when the Citizens Advisory Committee started to complain about how the money was being sent, they fired them all. The Sutter Butte's Flood Control Agency fired the Citizens Advisory Committee. You think they paid any attention to them? Hell no. In fact, one time they caught them right after they started collecting money. They were all going to fly back to Washington, D.C. for a little junket for $80,000 or something like that. And there was no money. That wasn't what the public was told. They're going to fly all around and go to junkets and go talk to hobnob with people in Washington, D.C. Pay for it your own self. Same thing with this here. We're going to set up this comprised, oh, this sounds so official, comprised of 5 county residents appointed by board members for 2-year terms. Oh, that sounds so official. And they have absolutely no clout at all. So, this week, Dan Walters, who is one of the more respected writers in the Northern California area, and probably farther than that, he used to work for the Sacramento Bee. He retired from there, but still is writing, and he wrote an article that says, despite the law, politicians use taxpayer funds for campaigns. Despite the law, politicians use taxpayer funds for campaigns. He says Government Code Section 8314 is unambiguous. For you out there in Olivehurst and Linda, that means not confusing. It's pretty straightforward. 8314 Code Section. It is unlawful for any elected state or local officer, including any state or local appointee, employee, consultant, to use or permit others to use public resources, that would be your and my tax dollars, for a campaign activity or personal or other purposes which are not authorized by the law. In other words, you can't take tax dollars and spend them on things that aren't authorized by the law. He goes on to say the law embraces an obvious principle. It would be unfair and undemocratic were officials to use taxpayers' money for self-serving political campaigns. Now, that's exactly what I'm talking about right here tonight, is that this campaign for money is self-serving. They say, oh, it's not to protect you. No, it's to pay their salaries and their fancy pensions that they can't afford to pay. They all gave themselves raises. You understand that? Did you ever remember in Yuba County or Sutter County paying for anybody to get a raise? That's because you weren't asked. They just said, we'll be doing the decision making around here. This is what they call an oligarchy. That's where a handful of people run everything. That's not what the founding fathers set up in this country. So what they did is they decided they were worth a lot more money than you're worth. So they gave themselves fancy salaries and fancy pensions that would be paid no matter how good the investments worked out. Now, that doesn't work in my world. It probably doesn't work in a lot of your world. If you make some bad investments, or you're not lucky, or God isn't blessing you, then that's just your tough luck. You live on less. But no. If you're a government employee, they done feathered the nest, as they say. They line their own pockets. When they talk about poor, they're not talking about P-O-O-R. They're talking about their pockets are open and just P-O-U-R, the money right in that pocket. That's what this is, lining your own pockets. So Walter says it would be unfair and undemocratic were officials to use taxpayers' money for self-serving political campaigns. Now, that's what we have all up and down the state. But just like I like to say, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. And what they're because of the people in charge of this state, fair political practice people, nobody's enforcing the law. Walter says increasingly, California officials are doing just that. In other words, are using tax money to line their own pockets. And they have little fear of being slapped down by prosecutors or the Fair Political Practices Commission. Now, he says it's common for local officials seeking tax increases or bond issues from voters to hire campaign consultants on the fiction that they will provide unbiased information to the voting public. Now, we've been fed a big old load of crap for months now from Bob Bendorf and the Cavaliers over there, his little group that he paid for with taxpayer dollars. These guys are the highest paid people in the county. They wouldn't even pay for it out of their own pocket. Some people say they filed Freedom of Information Act requests on how much money and where'd that come from. They're still waiting for it. Some people that are in on the know say they spent over $100,000 of our tax money. Shame on them. They violated the law. So Dan Walters says these consultants, public relations guys and gals, conduct polling to determine what angles or proposals are most attractive to voters, write the measures to stress those popular features, and then produce literature, fancy old cards you get in the mail, and ads to trumpet those selling points. One of the syndrome's more blatant examples occurred last year when Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors proposed a half-cent sales tax to help the homeless. The county gave TBWB Strategies, the San Francisco consulting firm, $1 million of taxpayers' money to work on the tax measure. The company isn't, if you look up their website, TBWB Strategies, they're pretty bullish. They say TBWB helps you package and pass a ballot measure to meet your needs by efficiently getting your message out to persuade the voters. That means to shum shakalaka, then run right over the top of them with a lot of BS to persuade the voters and mobilize your base of support. So the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association complained to the FPPC, Fair Political Practices Commission, that LA County should have at least filed a campaign contribution report, but the FPPC didn't do jack. So last month, Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association filed a lawsuit to challenge the TBWB contract's legality. So now Los Angeles County is so cocksure they're going to get away with murder, same way with Bendorf and his people, and same way they did at the Marysville City Council. They're going for it again. You think, if they ask for this 1%, they can't come back for it anymore. Oh, no. They're going to go. They went for a half cent. Now they're going to go for 2.5 cents. They're going to go for a parcel tax to raise $300 million to improve water services. Same thing. And they're using your taxpayers' money to shovel that smelly stuff right over your face. We'll be right back. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Lou Benninger, and if you just popped in, this is Live with Lou, and we're broadcasting here till noon on the Patriot KMYC 1410 AM. If you want to dial us up, you can at 530-742-5555. Normally we're live and would chat with you on the air, but today we've pre-recorded this the night before because we couldn't be here, but you could leave a message if you wish. Or if you want to shoot me a text when you listen to this, you can shoot me a text at 530-713-1838. 530-713-1838. People say, Lou, you give your phone number out on deal. I said, every criminal in town has my phone number, so why would I worry about a radio audience? We've been talking about bureaucrats telling you it's sprinkling outside, but they're actually pissing on your boots. And the sad thing is, the reason I played that Patton tape before is I'm trying to like get you to have a backbone instead of when your boots get pissed on and you just think when they tell you, oh, it must be sprinkling outside, you go, really? Really? I didn't know. I didn't see rain in the forecast. You just go along with it. Instead of like looking up their salaries, looking up their benefits, and realizing they're treating themselves like aristocrats. Supervisors in Yuba County are making $80,000 a year in pay and benefits. And plus, did you know they get a retirement? They actually get a retirement. So, this Dan Walters wrote this article like all this money that's been spent on behalf of pushing this tax, and instead of the bureaucrats using their own money, they use your and my money that they took from us. They're supposed to be paying for goods and services to provide for us. So the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is suing them. But these counties have been getting away with it, and so they're going for it. The California Taxpayers Association has reported that an educational video aired during the Los Angeles Supervisors meeting touting this new tax measure to raise money for water services as one that would result in, quote, better quality of life for everyone in L.A., and ended with the statement, now let's do this before the opportunity dries up. That sounds like somebody that's advocating a particular result instead of an unbiased stance. Wouldn't you agree? That's illegal right there, folks. The city council, the board of supervisors, cannot take your tax money after you voted for them and deceive you into voting for more taxes. That's against the law. But the law don't mean jack unless somebody's willing to enforce it. Dan Walters says slanted information now is a regular feature of local tax and bond campaigns, but state government is headed down the same slippery slope. Now, I've seen this, and I got angry when I saw it. He says, and I've seen Caltrans signs at highway construction projects touting or promoting or celebrating the financing of road work by Senate Bill 1. That's the road tax. That added 12 cents per gallon on your gas, and also, in many cases, added like 50% onto your DMV fees. And so they put up these signs using your money, advertising that this is the wonderful result of a road tax to raise $5.2 billion a year. And that should be illegal as well. They're advertising, oh, don't be, because on this November ballot, there's going to be a repeal of that tax, an option to repeal that tax. The DMV fees and the 12 cents per gallon. Now, Ling Ling Chang, that may sound funny to you, but that's Asian lady in Southern California, Ling Ling Chang, who won a recall election against Josh Newman, a rookie senator from Fullerton. He won over Ling Ling Chang in a previous election, and then he turned around and voted, was the deciding vote for SB 1, which was that gas tax. People got so furious with the Democrat, Josh Newman, that they organized a recall, which the legislature of California fought and took him to court and tried to undermine the recall in any way they could. In other words, they tried to eliminate the opportunity of the people having a voice. But they failed, and so Josh Newman was recalled, and Ling Chang won this particular race. She complained to Caltrans, saying no sign is needed to educate the public. It's all a big hype to get people to vote to keep the gas tax. The fact is the state of California gets plenty of money for gas taxes and DMV fees and just spends it on stupid stuff. So, here we go with we're going to have a chance to repeal the gas tax in November, and you're going to have a chance to either increase the taxes in Yuba County or keep them the same way. The Board of Supervisors had not made any decision to do business in any other way than they've been doing business for many decades. They've gone along with this CalPERS baloney. They've given incredible raises. They've gone back and paid people's retirement for them. How many of you out there that do not work for the state or the county or the city and are paying your, setting aside your own money for retirement, has anybody stepping in to take over that responsibility? Nobody, right? Yeah, you're paying your own. If you have anything, you're paying it. So that's just what's happening here, and it'll be interesting to see who prevails on this this fight. But Government Code Section 8314 is very clear that the government does not have the right to use your tax dollars to hire a public relations firm to cram and lie and deceive you, cram something down your throat. And what's going to happen between now and November is they're going to scare the hell out of you and Yuba County as if this is the only way to get. No, there's a lot of options. They could reduce salaries. They could reduce their retirement benefits. Supervisors could cut their salaries in half and still be overpaid. But they're not doing any of that. Now, I want to talk about this homeless situation in Yuba, Sutter County, and you could look at it. Everybody's got it happening everywhere. We've basically funded Walter Williams, the famous economist and writer and speaker, has said whatever you want less of, you tax. Whatever you want more of, you subsidize. So, we've been paying people to do stupid stuff for years. We give them welfare. We give them Social Security disability. We give them food stamps. We give them general assistance to lay around in a stupor, a drug or drunk stupor. And then we wonder why people mooch, and finally they get bold enough to say, hey, we're gonna demand things of you. We're gonna be homeless. We don't have to work. We don't have to get sober. And we'll just do whatever we want, and we'll poop wherever we want. We'll camp wherever we want, and you won't do a damn thing about it. And we got so many sissies in office now because that is kind of who we are as Americans. If you listen to that Patton clip, you realize that we're a long ways away from those type of people. We are a bunch of little pussies out there, and they are just kissing up to all these folks out on the street. Now, I'm into helping them. I think I put as much time into helping folks as most of you out there during the week. And so what I tell people is I said, we're going to give you a chance to meet Jesus. And if you want to pass on him, then we'll just have you arrested for dealing narcotics or whatever you're doing that's illegal. There's lots of ways to get people to behave themselves, right? It's easier if you just follow Jesus. He'll keep you straight on the straight and narrow. But the government is not. The government is anti Christian. It's not just unbiased. It's anti-Christian. Now, it's not anti-Muslim. It's not anti-Hindu. It's not anti-Punjabi or Sikh. It's anti-Christian. And you see it at every turn. And so in Chicago, for 17 years, the Moody Church, founded many, many years ago as a result of D.L. Moody revivals, it's in Chicago's Lincoln Park, and they've been providing for 17 years an after-school program for children, poor children. Now, the government can give away our tax dollars night and day to quote-unquote needy children that feel insecure about their food. They didn't get enough burritos. But if the church gets involved in helping poor people and getting them back on their feet, see, the idea with government is to put people on welfare till Trump got in there. The idea of the church is to make people independent. So for 17 years, the Moody Church has offered an after-school program. It's called By the Hand Club for Kids, which reaches underprivileged children in the Cabrini Green, Alteld, Murray, Inglewood, and Austin neighborhoods. Employees and church volunteers lead chapel service and Bible studies for boys and girls, teach them to pray and worship. They also provide meals and basic medical care, teach enrichment classes, and help the children with their homework. Now, that sounds good to me. Now, maybe it doesn't sound so good to me. To you. Even when I wasn't a Christian, because I wasn't raised that way, I thought, oh, this is a pretty cool deal. I wouldn't thank God for it because I didn't, they taught me in Marysville High School I came from a monkey, not from God, so I'd be thanking the monkey for it, right? So you would think that the government would be happy people doing this, but the government just talks about the homeless because they're a meal ticket for government. They just want their money. Scott Mitnick over there in Sutter County, Scott Thurman, the consultant, it's just a cash cow for them. They don't give a crap about these people. They fly up and down the state. In fact, Mitnick doesn't even live here. Can't even bear to bring his family up here. It's so distasteful up here for him. So the last activities I just mentioned caught the attention of the Illinois Department of Employment Security. In other words, they are providing free medical care, enrichment classes, and helping children with their homework. So the Department of Employment Security in Illinois, they decided that a ministry that offers such practical assistance, all for free, should surely be assessed unemployment compensation taxes, since it's not operated primarily for religious purposes. Now, this is where we're all going to have a fight, I'll tell you right now, because we done fought this fight with the State Department of Social Services, the Church of Glad Tidings. We were helping single women in prison when they birth their babies. And the government came in and cited a bunch of us, want to take us all to court because they said we were running a foster family agency without a license. Well, they were wrong. We were running a church, a real church, not just one where you just pass the plate and fall asleep and can't wait to go home and watch football. We were running a real church. That's where we help people that were really in need. And we were like getting some work done with troubled people, gals that were incarcerated, helping their babies. But the government came after us, and we had to have a fight. And so we had that fight. So now in Illinois, the Department of Employment Services said a church-sponsored, church-run, Bible-based mission outreach featuring prayer and discipleship program is not acting or is acting out of religious purposes. In other words, the church said, this is what we do as a church. We help people, and we do whatever it takes. If they need food, if they need a little tutoring, right, whatever they need. And the government saying, well, no, you just need to do those meetings you have on Sundays. It's just, if you go over to communist China right now, you'll see the exact same baloney going on. So, giving a kid a cookie and some apple slices, you can't do that back in Illinois. And praying with him and helping him with his multiplication tables, all of a sudden now they're going to Even if you don't pay people, they're going to assess a value and charge them unemployment taxes. The Illinois Department of Employment Services has never previously attempted to tax this group in its 15 plus years of service. So things are being run a little bit different. So now the state got taken to court. The state officials asserted their mythical legal right to decide how Christian a Christian ministry can be. Not only were they wrong about the law, attempting to tax a non-taxable entity, but they were on the verge of making things worse for under-resourced kids. Or in other words, food insecure kids. You heard that term? Now we just got to feed kids. Parents, did you know this? Parents that could figure out how to screw each other cannot figure out how to put a bologna sandwich together. It's the oddest thing. They can figure out how to go down and buy a tampon, a rubber, how to make it to the hospital, how to go get their WIC money, but they can't figure out how to throw a bologna sandwich together. So the court ruled in favor of the church because the government is being stupid. Now, that same government is stupid right here in Yuba and Sutter County. Glad Tidings, who has been taking care of people for years, that's a church in Yuba City that I've been affiliated with for years, so I know about it not only by talking to people, but I lived through that thing. I've been a part of it. So the government they've had a bean up their nose about us for just any number of things for years. And so we've been talking to them about having some housing out there at the church, adding some housing to take in the very people they claim they're so concerned about is the homeless and the California Rural Legal Assistance and the judges. And, we love the homeless and we need to take care of them. By God, you just can't tell them to obey the law. You got to have a place for them to go. We've been taking them and helping them. You'd think everybody would be congratulating us. But no. So one day, Mr. Mitnick over there in Sutter County, he heard that we were looking for some permission. We wanted to know whether we can put up some facilities out there, to little houses, to house people in, not permanently, but just to get them on their feet and then get them out into an apartment. Seemed like everybody was for that. And they asked us out there at the Glad Tidings if they could put a building out there, and they would pay to put the building out there, and they'd house lots of people in that building, maybe 60 to 90 people. So we said, well, if you want to do that, it's up to you. We're interested in helping the same people you are. You know, the problem is in government, when you think that they think like you do. See, the Yuba County government does not think like you do out there on Olivehurst Avenue or Sicard Street in Marysville or up there on Loma Rica Road. They do not think like you do. They want a lot of money. How much do you make up there on Loma Rica Road? You make 150, 175, 200, 225, 250, 300? We'll be right back. I'm going to peel this thing down for you, and we're going to talk about some of these characters been trying to harass Glad Tidings for doing the right thing. We'll be right back. All right, you're listening to Live with Lou. This is the Patriot, 1410 AM. We're into our second hour. Welcome. And this is a pre-record for you that might have just hooked up with us. And so you can call, but we won't be able to answer because we couldn't be here today. But we made it so our show would be here. I want to thank the Yuba Sutter Constitutional Republicans for helping us be on the air, and let you know that they are making a big push to get some good candidates elected. And they are located, they have a headquarters located at 441 Bridge Street, Suite E, Yuba City. And they are up and going. They just had a big activity there last night and Thursday night. And so you can connect over there. I don't know whether they have a phone number over there, but if you want to connect with them, and find out what's shaking, you could email Bill Beeler. That's C.W. Beeler, B-E-E-L-E-R, B-E-E-L-E-R at SYIX.com, and he could probably give you a rundown. Or you could just tomorrow on Sunday from 1 to 3, there'll be some of those folks from Yuba Sutter Constitutional Republicans will be here on the radio doing the Yuba Sutter Political Spotlight. And so you can call them up at 742-5555, and you can get involved. Now, I want to assure you something, that nothing is going to change in the political landscape in Yuba Sutter, Nevada, Placer, Colusa, Butte, any of those counties out there that can hear me, unless you do something different than you did in the last election. If all you did was think about happy thoughts and pray, or maybe you just went down and voted, that's all you did. Some of you that wanted to vote for John Missler and just had happy thoughts, oh, he'll get into the primaries, that didn't happen, did it? Well, now everybody up there in the 5th District in Yuba County's got all flustered because Missler didn't get in there, and now they don't feel they got a choice between the incumbent Fletcher and and Alton Wright, who's opposing him. So now there's going to have a write-in campaign for somebody that's really embraces the same conservative ideals that many of the people in the foothills have. So is it possible to get a write-in campaign to be a winner? Yeah, anything's possible, but only if you decide to do something different. If you're just going to sit around and just say, oh, yeah, I think I'll vote for him, I'll write his name, but you don't get a few other people, it won't happen. Right, so if you do same old, you're going to get same old. So thanks for the Yuba Sutter Constitutional Republicans for their help. Also, we want to thank Monty Hecker over there at Elite Universal Security in Yuba County. Monty's operating all up and down the valley here, Yuba, Sutter, Butte, Shasta area, providing security services. So if you want to get a job in that field, or you want them to save you, and people ripping you off and vandalizing and trashing your property, dial them up at 530-749-0280. They'll also help you get squared away if you want to get a gun or you want to get some pepper spray. They will help you with training. They will help you with taser training. They got all kinds of training that you can check out at API-Academy. API with a little hyphen and then academy.com. And you can find out when their classes are. But I'm going to tell you right now that you can dip into some classes on the end of August, 25 and 26, and you could get your license for your concealed carry if you want, and go out there and learn how to shoot. And they're also going to do, they on and off, they do taser and pepper spray classes. They just did one of those here recently. You can also get your live scan done if you need live scan to get a job or to apply or get a permit to do something. I think when I was worked in car sales, I had to go get a live scan, and so a lot of reasons. You can walk right in there 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday and get a live scan. So check it out, Elite Universal Security. So I was talking earlier about the fact that all this fussing about homelessness is all a big ploy. It's just a big bunch of baloney. In fact, you don't see any of these big executives chipping in any of their money. They're all wanting to tell everybody how they need to spend your money and my money. So what happened is the Sutter County, they put together, because none of the Board of Supervisors wanted to take the political heat for making a decision on where to locate this building to put in homeless people, because some judge said unless you have a building to warehouse them, even though you can't warehouse all of them because there's hundreds of them, but if you can just warehouse some of them, even though there's drug rehabs and there's homeless shelters and there's rescue missions, the court said they just had to say something. So it's just an activist judge saying something stupid again. You got to have another building, spend another $1 million, and then I'll okay you enforcing the laws of the land. In other words, I have to obey the law, but a homeless person does not have to obey the law. They can do pretty much whatever they want. So they asked Glad Tidings, would you be willing to put this building out here? Glad Tidings didn't ask for any money. They didn't go approach them. They didn't go begging for money. We'd never asked the county for money. All the county has ever done is kicked us in the teeth out there and crapped all over us. They're a big pain in the ass is what they are, the county of Sutter and Yuba. They're just giving us crap all the time. And so they came to us at Glad Tidings and asked us if we'd be willing to take on this project. And we said, yeah, we work with those people all over. This is not new territory for us, partner. It's new territory for you all, for usted, as they say down there south of the border. Ustedes. It's new for ustedes, not for us. We got this. So, lo and behold, after this committee that's assigned to go pick a location to put this building, and they decide of all the locations in Sutter County, they think this property out there at Glad Tidings is the place to go. Like I said, it don't mean neither or to the church. But I just want to tell you how the motive, remember I told you about they piss on your boots and tell you it's raining? That's exactly what's happening here. So they say, oh, yeah, we want to use you guys and do this, that, and the other thing. We have meeting after meeting, sucking all our time. All our volunteers are donating their time. They're like getting paid $5,000 a day or whatever they're getting paid for work, $1,000 a day, $800 a day for working out there, sitting in meeting after meeting, not accomplishing crap. Just playing games, political games. And then they realize they got this big, what they call a wall of money, right? They start to ejaculate because they got a wall of money. They don't care. They don't care about homeless people. They could drop dead. In fact, if they all suffocated or got flooded tomorrow, they would rejoice. Of course, they wouldn't be obvious about that, but they would rejoice over there in Sutter County. And so they come to this meeting, and this there's a law offices of Steve Gimblin, but I've changed his name. He's now Steve Grimlin because he's a little character that's deceptive. He's a liar, right? Like a lot of attorneys, they're legal liars, but they never get held accountable for it because they just keep lying. And the key is if you lie enough, they just let you go and you spend enough money. And you keep continuing the case. You got it? So Mr. Gremlin, it gets hired, and I'm not quite sure who hired him, but he sent a letter, 4-page letter, that he CC'd to all the supervisors and also Mr. and Mrs. Casey Kroon. I thought, oh, I wonder if they complained. Who hired Mr. Gremlin? Was it Mr. and Mrs. Kroon? And what about Justin McKelly? He's on the bottom of the paper, on the bottom of the letter. I wonder if he hired him. And what about the Honorable Thomas L. Hill? Honorable means they once were a judge. Thomas Hill. And then they have Mr. Filter down here. Well, it's interesting because we used to rent some of our property out there to the Filter family. We had a good relationship with them. And now Mr. Filter, I wonder if he's wanting to give Glad Tidings, Mr. Philip Filter. Wonder if he wants to like put the gloves on and go at it with Glad Tidings. McKelly, Hill, Filter, the Kroons. So you want to throw us under the bus. So this guy's not got this gremlin. When you look between his legs, he hasn't got nothing hanging down there because he went in and lied to the Board of Supervisors, sent this 4-page letter saying that we had a housing and we were housing sex registrants on the church property. Did he even go to the church property? Did he call the pastor? Did he investigate? No, he never did do anything like that. You know why I know? Because the pastor confronted him after the meeting when he threw us under the bus. Mr. Gremlin, the guy with no cojones, the guy that's castrated. He ain't got any, right? All he can do is fire from afar. He want to put the gloves on and go at it? Maybe we should do that. But he wanted to fire from afar, and it's kind of like if I called Gremlin a molester. Well, that wouldn't be fair, would it? Because I haven't really asked. I haven't really got any evidence that he's a molester, right? That Gremlin, the attorney, is a molester. I don't have any evidence he's a molester. It's just, I guess he could be. There's always a chance. What about 91 chance out of 100? Has he ever toyed with a boy? I don't know. It's interesting to me, all this sex registrant stuff, because a lot of you had sex with people underage, and you don't want to talk about it, do you? Because if you got caught, you would be on that disc, right? On that whatever one, Jessica, Marcy, any name that. You had sex with, I wonder if Gremlin had sex with underage girls once upon a time. So he writes this thing up how the church is housing sex registrants. Didn't ask anybody, didn't do any investigation, just launched it. Talked about us having a daycare, but we don't have a daycare. Just put that out there. Send it to the supervisors. All these lies. Attorneys just lie all the time. You know that? I've been in enough court where they're just full of crap, the whole bunch of them. It's hard to find a decent attorney. You know that? And so he writes this 4-page letter and throws everybody under the bus. And yet Sutter County, in whatever place they're going to locate their housing, the 60 to 90 people are going to house, they didn't have any way of differentiating between one person and another, right? So anyway, we're used at Glad Tidings taking a beating. And so the pastor, Dave Bryan, stood up and just simply went through this letter for all that were sitting there that night, and then went over and talked to the gremlin, the guy with nothing between his legs. And he said, why didn't you just call me, man, if you wanted to know about our church? But if you're hired, you got to justify. You got to like do a dust up on these attorneys. You got to do a dust up to earn your money. So I don't know whether Filter and Hill and McKelly and the Croons kicked in some money on this deal. But God bless you guys. I just wish you well, on how you just go after a church who actually probably Hill, McKelly, Croons, Filter, never done jack for a person that was hard up, but they're going to go after a church that they don't know anything about and try to tear them down, right? Just because we didn't go after any money from the county. They came and wanted to put a facility on our property. You got that? And so here's the rest of the story. These things are just, honestly, that's better than a Hollywood script. I thought Christianity is boring. Church, to me, typical church is boring. Like a lot of people leave Glad Tidings because it ain't boring. It's controversial always, right? You want to go to Glad Tidings? There's going to be some controversy. It's been there since the 1970s. So the week after the meeting where Mr. Gremlin, the attorney with the nothing between the legs, he shows up. And they have this discussion, and he trashes the church, and the board decides to not use the church, which is fine with us, by the way. The next week, the detectives from Sutter County Sheriff's Department show up at the church. And they're looking for sex registrants being housed there. I wonder who sent them out there. Was that Mitnick? Was that the district attorney? Was that Sheriff Parker? And I thought I was friends with a lot of these people at one time. And so they come out and they talk to one of our workers out there, and who is kind of in leadership out there. He's no small slouch. He's been at a church in Oregon. He was a pastor, one of the senior leaders, an elder in that church. He was the head of a Christian school. Had a contractor's license. He's not like Albert Einstein, but he's no slouch. So the detectives begin to interview him about sex registrants living on the campus. And he says, we don't have that. And he tries to explain they said it was Detective Green from Sutter County Sheriff. They wouldn't finally give him a card. Is that odd to you that when a law enforcement official would not volunteer their card so you'd have at least a record to get back to them? But Detective Green says, well, we know you got him out here. He said, well, we don't, because he said, actually, our understanding is a sex registrant can't live anywhere they please. They have to live wherever their probation officer, parole officer says. And he says, we know you got him out here, so you're not cooperating, and give him a hard time. He says, and Ed Mason just simply says, well, he said, we don't have anybody housed out there like this because we couldn't even decide to do that because it's up to their and the guy says, I don't give an F. Now, I don't know how these detectives are supposed to talk. I guess if you're going after a criminal, but this guy's a pastoral type guy, and he says, I don't know whether he's trying to intimidate him. I just want to tell you detectives out there, I respect you. Do not try to intimidate me or anybody else out there. If you want to go intimidate some kid on the street or cuss at him, just go do it. But please don't come and try to cuss at me and think you're going to like get somewhere or any of those people out there in charge. So he said, I don't give an F what those POs think. We're running this county of Sutter. I thought, man, you know, people must be pretty insecure in Sutter County when they got to strut their stuff like that. It's kind of like saying, I am really tough. I am tough, right? I can't prove it to you, but I just want to say it over and over. I'm tough. I don't give an F about those parole officers and probation officers. Well, frankly, I do. I do have respect for parole officers and probation officers, and I work with them. And we work with them at Glad Tidings and have for years because we've been helping people for decades. Before Sutter County became fashionable for Sutter County people to be interested in the homeless and people that were trying to get back on their feet after getting out of jail and prison, we were taking care of those people and helping them. And we gave an F about them. We did give an F about them. So the fact that you don't give an F about the probation officers, will just go have a drink down at the local bar then. Have a happy for you. Happy for you. Hope you have a great retirement and get 90% of your salary. Happy days to you. So he said to Ed, my friend, he said, you're not cooperating. So the interesting thing is, he said, you know, Ed says, because he was involved in a very large church in Portland, a few thousand people. He said, you know, when we open the doors here for church, we don't know who comes to church. Anybody can attend here, right? People with a record, people that have never committed a crime in their life. I'm just filling in the blanks here. He didn't say all this, but in other words, anybody can attend a church. A prostitute could come. A drug addict could come. A molester could come. We don't know. Actually, there are molesters that go to Rayleigh's and buy groceries, or Bel Air, or Food Max, or Winco. Molesters, they eat. Do you know that sex registrants eat? They go to Burger King. They go to Taco Bell. So Ed says, we're a church. When we open the doors for meetings, people come. And we're willing to help people that have bad backgrounds. And the guy said, well, they can go to some other church. They can't come here. Are we losing our minds in Sutter and Yuba County? Are we losing our minds? They can go to another church, but they can't go to this church. It's interesting to me. Like I said, I've been living at this church for years. I used to work there. We were the first church in both counties, way long before people are talking about it, because we had some CPS workers that worked at that attended the church. No, she wasn't CPS. She was probation. She worked for Yuba County Probation. And so we got together one day, and she said, Lou, we should background check and we should fingerprint all the workers at our church that work with kids from newborn on up to 18. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So we set up, I believe it was one of the first ones, and we just didn't fingerprint them, but we actually did a background check on them and did a whole history, asked them lots of questions, a whole package of questions. But the fact is, those are our children's workers, but we still worked with all kinds of people that are broken people. And so just like the state of Illinois tried to go in and tax the Moody Church for doing their Christian duty, according to their biblical duty to help broken people. You know, broken people sometimes include people that kind of get on our nerves, like sex registrants or prostitutes. Some people don't like ex-drug addicts. I have friends that killed people in the past. They served their time. Some people think if a person does certain things, they should never be they should never have a chance in society. My feeling is if you feel that way, then we should just, when they do that, we should just shoot them and be done with it and bury them, give them a good Christian burial. But if you're going to let them back into society to just torture them and harass them and not help them straighten out their life, that's just being plain snarfy. Now, I get it. I have friends that are in law enforcement, good friends, and they don't like people that take advantage of other people. I get it. And some of them are kind of burnout. But the fact is, the work of the church is redemption. So would we work with a person that has a problem in their past? Like maybe like you, they had sex with an underage girl, like some of you did, but they got caught. Yeah, we'd work with them. Can we house them at Glad Tidings? No, not if the probation and parole says they can't. We can't. And that's what's going on, Mr. Green. So, Mr. Green, I don't know. I wasn't there to hear you, like, drop the F-bomb and all that, and I drop the F-bomb occasionally. I got it. Please don't come out. If you want to pull your gun out there and intimidate people, just pull your darn gun. Do what you got to do. But it's like we already had out in public and everything before God and everybody said we didn't have none of them housed out there. So that the detectives assured Glad Tidings that when they pulled in, if they ever saw anybody lingering around there they didn't like, they would surely arrest them. So I'm sure everybody in Sutter County feels all comfortable. So Mr. McKelly, Mr. No Nuts, Gremlin, who else? Filter, Hill, Croons. I hope you feel good about it. You just trashed the church, slandered us, and paid a weak little gremlin attorney to do that for you. And so there you have it, just smudged all over us, kind of like a character graffiti. Did a drive-by graffiti on the church. Proud of you guys. We'll be right back.
Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution lays out the framework for the state of Jefferson's plan to split California. A state can be formed from the land within another state if the state legislature and Congress approve it with a simple majority vote. 51% is all it takes. Your vote doesn't count in Northern California. California is broken and the time has come for 51. Please visit soj51.net and donate now to show your support.
Check out the Territorial Dispatch. Papers are weekly and can be obtained free at distribution or by mail through subscription. It's the only locally owned and operated newspaper in the region. The paper is the rest of the story. And also check out the E-Territorial. It's an online version of the Territorial Dispatch which features local news and events for the Yuba, Sutter, Colusa, and Nevada County areas. You'll also find daily and breaking news updates, current traffic, and weather information along with a calendar of local events. Visit the E-Territorial at eterritorial.com.
All right. We're talking earlier about the hypocrisy of the Sutter County government with pretending they're going to somehow help homeless people, but now they're going to exclude all sex registrants. And so the detectives came out and harassed the Glad Tidings church people because of the inaccurate accusations brought up by Attorney Gremlin. And so the alternative location is 1965 Live Oak Boulevard, which is mental health. And there's that big grassy spot. But I guess the city of Yuba City can have sex registrants lodged in the city near schools and parks. because there's lots of kids in and out of the mental health facility, right? And not too far from that, you have schools. So I guess that's a problem. So right in, I guess, the meeting the other night, people said, well, what is the provision if a homeless person happens to be on one of these discs where they have to be registered as a sex offender? At some point, people are just going to have to sort out if you're going to offer help to people of certain stripes. How are you going to do that? Obviously, instead of moving it into town, maybe they should move it farther out of town if they want to house sex registrants up in the Sierra Nevada wilderness or something. Well, I want to talk some also, Sutter County, about the grand jury. I'm not quite sure whether 17 or 19 people worked on that grand jury, but now floating around on the internet on Facebook is a letter of protest signed by 17 members of the grand jury saying, we aren't signing anything we didn't put together. We're not going to do an edited version, and we're quitting in protest a few days prior to the date that the grand jury report was supposed to come out. And there's all the signatures of the jurors that's floating around there on the Facebook. Maybe you've seen it. I've seen it. Just because it came on what they call the news feed. So then I got a letter that I guess was sent to the Board of Supervisors by a couple folks, Becky Jennings and Steve Meyer, who have served on the grand jury in the past, and they formed a Grand Jurors Association in order for grand jurors to be more educated and more capable and apt to do a good job. So when you get appointed to the grand jury, you really don't have any training right at that point. And generally they'll send you to a little training school, but I know Jennings and Meyer had the idea to give a lot more training to folks so they're able to do a much more effective job. So Becky Jennings wrote a letter, actually Jennings and Meyer. Jennings is the president of the Sutter County Grand Jurors Association. Meyer is the vice president. And they drafted a letter and they sent it. I think they must have sent it to the Appeal Democrat, the daily newspaper here, and they also sent it to the Board of Supervisors. But it questioned the very unusual decision on behalf of judges to now screen grand jury reports. That's essentially what we have. If in other words, you have a grand jury, they interview people, and they put out a report, and they have findings, and they put out a report. Now we have a situation when certain key people in the community, leaders in the community, department heads in the government don't like the findings, then they put pressure on the judge to put the kibosh on the report. Then people quit. Now, how often we're going to have that happen before people say, I'm not going to serve on a damn grand jury? Why would I serve on it? You just jerk people around. Those people that served on it, 17 people. I recognize some of the names on there. I thought, man, they spent a year of their life on that thing, going and checking and writing and conferring, etc. So anyway, Jennings and Meyer said, in this letter, it says, in People versus Superior Court, 1973 grand jury, Santa Barbara County, and it lists all the case. There was an actual fight. The grand jury, it says, is a judicial body, an instrumentality of the court. However, subject to the court's general supervision, the grand jury has full independence of action. This is a case finding. Full independence of action when performing its watchdog function, and the court has no authority to impose its own views on the grand jury or suppress a report simply because it considered it ill-advised or insufficiently documented or even libelous. I've seen grand jury reports a lot. I read them. And department heads get all PO'd and write responses, and the sheriff gets upset and he write responses. He said, that's not right what they said, and they debate it. but it's all out in public where people can decide for themselves. Like I remember when Chuck Polos headed up the attorney that got involved in this situation in Sutter County. Chuck Polos was the head of the grand jury, and they investigated the Yuba County Jail. And they said some stuff in there that was just stupid. Why do I know that? Because I spend time in the Yuba County Jail. I know some stuff that goes on there that they just ignored. They said in their grand jury report in Yuba County that they had talked to the head of the medical department. That was Joe Cassidy. He said, that's a lie. They just lied, right? They just made that up. But nobody prevented the report from coming out. It came out. And then I wrote an article about it in the newspaper, said they were full of baloney about the jail, right? And Dr. Cassidy had his say some way. So this says, according to this case involving Santa Barbara County, that the judges have no right, they don't have a watchdog function in that way to put the kibosh on an ill-advised, insufficiently documented, or even libelous report. Hold that thought. So Jennings and Meyer says they made an inquiry of Scott Mitnick, the county administrator, says, does the county have a policy in place to guide the county council in the event county council needs to recuse themselves when they believe they have a conflict? Jean Jordan, the county council, has a conflict in this case because she's in that grand jury report, and she and Amanda Hopper, the DA, were both in the report, and they both threatened the grand jury. And they twisted Judge Aronson's arm to put the kibosh on this. And that's what happened. So Meyer and Jennings say, in our research into other counties, we've found that if the lead county counsel has a conflict, in most counties, the grand jury advisory role is assigned to another attorney in that office, etc. We also, Jennings and Meyer said, we checked to see if the county board of supervisors were consulted in this decision, and we were told they were not. The attorney general in the decision listed below explains the protection counties are required to provide the grand jury. Now, the grand jury was told, in this case in Sutter County, if you put out that report, we will not defend you in court. That is a flat-out lie. It says, under this category of indemnification, defense for defamation suits, and it gives all the numbers for the code numbers. It says a county must indemnify or pay a settlement or judgment and pay for the defense of grand jurors sued for defamation. That means, and when they roll it out there, if people say, you like slandered my character, you slandered me, you libeled me, that because the county has taken those people on just like employees, even though they're not paid, they have to defend them for defamation for statements made within a final report that is within the jury's jurisdiction. Jurors are considered to be county employees for this purpose. So this whole threat, they were going to get sued, and they told them that whether it was Amanda Hopper or Jean Jordan, threatened them that they would not be protected by the county. What do you mean? The supervisors should have been making that decision, whether or not they're going to be defended. And the fact is, the law says that the county has to defend them. So, it says the only time a county can withdraw legal counsel is if the jury went outside their jurisdiction. For example, if the jury decided to investigate an agency that would outside of their own county, right? They say in this letter, it's very disturbing that the entire civil grand jurors resigned 4 days prior to the end of their term and made the decision to not release the final report. You know why they didn't release the final report? Because Judge Aronson edited the report. Judge Aronson needs to resign. It raises a question. What could have possibly happened that the jury felt they had no other recourse but to resign and not release the final report? Our citizens have a right to know whether or not the grand jury system was compromised and to discover if there was, in fact, improper pressure placed on the jury to redact information from their report or to not publish their findings. The penal code that explains the process says the grand jury must give the relevant parts of the report to the official. Anyway, I won't get into that. It's just the weeds of this. The fact is that this report was selectively distributed. An edited report was selectively distributed, so when they say the grand jury report will not be available, they just ignored the whole process, and they just said, screw the grand jury. We're going to just go, we're going to just do whatever we want. That's what Judge Aronson and Judge Heckman and those department heads over there said. We're just going to go off the reservation with a report of our own. So that's just the way it worked out. That's just what they did. And unless people keep complaining about it, they're just going to get away with it. And that means in the future, either the grand juries won't get into any gnarly situations, or Mr. Aronson, the judge, has set a precedent that the judge will now be the new grand jury. It's the grand judge. He's the ruler of the county, and whatever he says goes, not the people. That is not what the grand jury was designed for. The grand jury was designed to be the eyes and ears of the people, because the government is all too powerful. And there's way too many government employees. It's too powerful. They're too much up in our business. They're always wanting to jam a bean up our nose, right? And my offer's still out there for you jurors. If you want to leak on me. And I will publish the report, and I will tell the whole world about it, regardless of whether Mr. Aronson or Detective Green or all you other people out there that get your undies in a bundle. So, grand jurors, you can do Sutter County a favor. Yeah, I know you took a confidentiality deal, but these guys are corrupt. And to me, when people go corrupt, all bets are off on the rules. That's how I feel about it. Including Mr. Gremlin. So, all right. All right, let's see. I want to mention my friend. I may have promoted this last week, and I may not have given the date, so I'm going to give it right away. September 1st, it's a Saturday, just a few weeks away. If you want to have a fun getaway with your family, and you're not going to spend a nickel besides getting there, is up at Penn Valley at Western Gateway Park. It's about 40 minutes from here probably. 10 minutes from Grass Valley. They're going to have from 1 to 8, 1 in the afternoon to 8 at night. They got a big event, one big event, 6 gospel bands, free admission, food, concert, bounce houses, family fun throughout the entire day, hundreds of free prizes, $1,000 grand prize drawing at 7:30. It's just a cool deal. And the reason I know this is a good friend of mine puts this thing on. And he's done it for 27 years. And so it's a very fun, the music's great. So the Rev City Blues Band's going to be at 1 o'clock. Surrender, it's a rock kind of style band. So they got all kinds of flavors of music. Electric Blues, Rev City Blues Band at 1. 2 is rock variety band. It's called Surrender. 3 o'clock, traditional music, Amy Ayers. 4, blues and jazz, Makira. That's my friend's band. They're cool. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They got like 9 people in this band. It's unbelievable. 5:15, WD Gospel Singers. And 6:30, Lisa Daggs, Country Entertainer of the Year. On some years. They don't say which year. Maybe it was like 1856. I don't know. All right. They call it Praise in the Mountains. It's just a hang loose, bring your lawn chair, and maybe you might want to haul some water in. But other than that, I think they got food up there they give away and the whole deal. It's pretty cool. So go up there and check it out. Let's see. Also, I wanted you to know that Copy City over in Marysville on D Street they were raising money for, I think it was the toy run or something, money for buy gifts for kids. And somebody like broke through their window on D Street in Marysville. And this big jug that they were collecting contributions had like $300 or $400 in it, right? But you could see it through the window. So they took a grate off the city of Marysville and just threw it right through the window. And they took the jar, which was chained to a desk, they took it all and carried it right down the streets of Marysville. Now, that's how, I tell you, Marysville has changed. I got tweaker. In fact, I saw where one of the sheriff's deputies for Yuba County, he likes to hunt, he and his son, and they have a duck blind, but he lost his rent on his duck blind. I thought, I'm going to rent out my front yard as a tweaker blind, and they could hunt tweakers over there on 11th Street. But I don't know. He might not. He think maybe that's against the code in Marysville to go tweaker hunting. But we got lots of tweakers working our area, and some of our folks in the area are like coddling them, those tweakers. So, all right. How about the grand jury or the have you been to the DMV lately? Have you been seeing the notices on the what's up with the DMV? The DMV, I saw it on the news. I don't even know where I saw it on. Maybe it was posted a clip on Facebook. Literally, people, it was blocks long, a line getting into the DMV. And now they're hiring, like, they're going to spend $16 more million and hire 200 something people to beef up, because they can't, their computer system's new and screwed up. Government cannot figure out a computer system that works. In the private sector, you can order your insurance online, you can buy your shirts online, you can buy groceries online, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can buy airline tickets online. We can't figure out how to run the doggone DMV. I heard Randy Thomason say on a commercial earlier how they had to turn the DMV over to private sector. I totally agree with them. I'd just fire all those people. But government, a woman that I knew years and years ago, she used this term, and it threw me off for years. I had to think about it all the time. I understood welfare. She had another term. She had white collar welfare. It took me years for it to sink in, because I just thought people were in public service and sacrificing and everything and working hard. But I understand white collar welfare. So if you work for government, it's like from cradle to grave. You're there, whether you do a good job or not. And I have an article on here where it talks about that a DMV person, they were sleeping 3 hours a day at their desk and never got fired. I don't know whether I don't even know whether I can find it very fast now, because we're at the end of the hour. But I'll just tell you, this story is that DMV people are not held accountable for anything. And this one employee, literally, other people testified the fact that the employee slept at least 3 hours a day and never did get fired and collected all their pay. And so what Randy said on his clip is that the problem with the DMV people is they don't love people. And when you run a private business, you learn how to serve people and you please people. Whether you're serving a breakfast in the morning, or whether you're fixing their tires, or whether you're repairing their finger, or how you're caring for them. You learn to love people and care for people. And DMV just doesn't give a crap. And I couldn't believe it. John Missler, John's running for supervisor up here in the 5th District. He told me he made 2 or 3 trips to the DMV because he waited for hours and he still couldn't get in. He had to go back to work. He tried to Yuba City DMV, then he drove all the way to Colusa thinking smaller city he could get in quicker. And it's just a total disaster. So, did you know that there's a secret DMV at the state capitol? Somebody discovered a small DMV inside the state capitol, and you know who they serve? The political guys. There's 2 people there. I'm going to tell you about it when we get back. It's totally a ripoff. These people are such losers. We got one more hour to go, but somebody else wants to talk for a minute. We'll be right back. All right, well, we're into our last hour. This is Lou Benninger. You're listening to Live with Lou, and if you want to dial us up, leave a comment, you can. We are not live today, but it is a fresh show, and we're doing this in the middle of Friday night, and for you, Saturday morning. So you have an hour left, and you can dial us up, leave a comment at 530-742-5555, and you can leave the big kahuna amen or a oh no. So I just want to give a shout out to the 17 jurors and heroes. I probably would have, if I was with you, I'd have done the same thing. So we had Francis Hill, foreperson, Frank Hopkins, pro tem, grand juror, Lisa Cunningham, secretary, Ajit Singh, sergeant at arms, Jennifer Emerson, Ann Sue George, Satinder Cheat Kaur, Alan Ludwig, Cynthia Morrow, Mary Mayfield, Rachel Ornelas, Nancy Ferris, Anthony Snoot, Joanna Taylor, Sandra Taylor, Angela Walker, and Robert Wilkerson Jr. On behalf of the Patriot, we want to thank you all, 17 of you, for your hard work and your integrity and for what you stood up for. So, the letter that they wrote and they all signed says, Honorable Brian R. Aronson and Honorable Sarah Heckman. That honorable part is something where we just honor the spot, not necessarily the person, because sometimes people go sideways. Kind of like you say, Mr. Jones, you just, or ma'am. Says, we, the 2017-2018 Sutter County Grand Jurors, resign in protest as we were prevented from fulfilling our duty as the watchdog for Sutter County. I want to say that again. That is a mouthful, folks. If you don't think that is dangerous, we're on some dangerous ground here in Sutter County. We, the 2017-2018 Sutter County Grand Jurors, resign in protest as we were prevented from fulfilling our duty as the watchdog for Sutter County. There will be no 2017-2018 Sutter County Grand Jury final report published. And then they all signed their names above their printed names. That's why I could read it, because some of their cursive is cursive. So the reason that they resigned is that Mr. Honorable Judge Aronson wanted to create his own report and have them sign it. Now, I told you a week or two ago, I've had that experience with the newspaper over there at the Appeal Democrat several editors ago when I used to write letters to the editor, and they used to complain to me. They were starting to give me more and more of a hard time. So he wanted to change my letter to the editor, and I told him she could change it if he wanted to, but when he changed it, then at the bottom, take my name off of it and put his name on it, that would be his letter to the editor. So Judge Aronson, whatever he released to the department heads should have his name on it, that he approved of everything that was said, and now that was he's it's not the grand juror's report, but the grand judge's report. That's what that is. It's a flawed report. It doesn't represent the people of Sutter County. It represents a potentate of Sutter County. You got it? So, while you're standing in line for hours, some people have been over there for days. They get there at 6 in the morning at the DMV. The DMV was disdained by the people before this happened. Now, it is just absurd. This is like a communist country, this state of California. And so KCRA News somehow got the message that there was a DMV inside the state capitol that served the legislators. They could get personal service. They did not have to go wait in line. Well, they're just so their crap doesn't stink. It's like they don't want to be touched by the public. They shouldn't have to lower themselves to stand in line for half a day. Well, there's too important. Look at all the important things they do over at the state capitol. They screw all their secretaries and stuff and molest people. You know that? They got to be about their business. Do you know all those investigations where they're molesting women and everything over there? We're paying for that. Or they're taking bribes. Remember old Leland Yee from San Francisco? The child psychologist became a senator, and he was anti-Second Amendment, anti-guns, but on the side he was making deals with terrorists with rocket launchers. You remember that? That's the kind of people we got down there, folks. This is a funky deal. You think, oh, communism's bad. No, we got some funky tacos down there. One of the guys, they tried to get a vote in the assembly to do an audit of the DMV, and several of the Democrat lawmakers, including Lara, L-A-R-A, he's the one that shouted down Janet Nguyen when she wanted to talk about that Tom Hayden was a communist and talk about the heroic work of the Vietnamese, and they shouted her down and they carted her off. The sergeants in arms just carted her butt right off the Senate floor. So Lara, he abstained. Enough of them abstained so they couldn't get a vote to audit the DMV. Governor Brown said it wouldn't do any good anyway. We already know what's wrong with the DMV. So they just keep people in the dark. Whether it's Governor Brown, Judge Aronson, those small people, they don't deserve to know what's in that report. They don't deserve to even know what's wrong with the DMV. Just let them stand in line. To hell with their jobs. To hell with their kids. To hell with the fact that they're sick or they're fighting diabetes or they got cancer. Just let them stand out there in the 90-degree heat, and by God, if they don't want a driver's license, then tell them to go to hell. They're just going to either wait or they can. Somebody said to me, oh, well, they could just get an appointment. Oh, baloney. People don't know what the crap they're talking about today. So KCRA gets the word that the legislators, room 121, has no markings on the door and was locked when KCRA visited on Thursday. But after knocking, a worker opened the door and confirmed it was a DMV office and said it's set up to handle customer complaints that escalate to the legislative branch. However, having a private office for legislators and their Capitol staff is a source of frustration for Assemblyman Jim Patterson from Fresno. His request for an official DMV audit was designed when 3 Democrats, Lara, Allen, and Beal, abstained from voting. He said, I've been here 6 years, and I'm not surprised that legislators have given themselves special privileges and perks that typical Californians just don't get. So DMV officials later told KCRA3 that the special office, now this is where people are pissing on your boots. Listen to this. These people actually believe this stuff. DMV officials told KCRA3, God bless KCRA, man, these people are unbelievable, that the special office at the Capitol has 2 staff members. You know how many people, how many requests for help they handle each year? They say 2 people handle 10,000 requests. If that isn't pissing on your boots, I don't know what is. Dealing with constituent 10,000. I don't know how many that is a month. That's almost 1,000 a month. You want to do the numbers on it? It's almost 1,000. 2 people. Now, when I we were doing those dinners for tip, and I had to get a liquor license because the fire guys wanted to sell some beer and wine. So I had to get a $25 one-night liquor license, right? You know, it took me weeks to get that liquor license. Fill out a form, send in my $25, and wait, and you're just biting your tongue because if you don't get that liquor license, it's going to be all hell break loose when you roll that liquor out, right? It took those people, I'd call them, well, yeah, it's on our desk. So, and this is a whole crew at the ABC, right? Alcohol Beverage Control. But the DMV officials, they actually told Case Area 3 that two staffers, those people were tweakers. If they're handling 10,000 requests a year, dealing with constituent questions or concerns, and then the DMV did not deny serving lawmakers and their staffers, but insisted that 90% of their work done was solving consumer problems brought to their attention by lawmakers. I'm telling you, people, if you don't think you're getting screwed coming and going in this state, you are absolutely crazy. It's just like, you remember that, we played it on here where Clinton is looking you straight in the eye and said, I want to tell you, I did not have sex with that woman. We should play that again sometime. I miss that. Just it's fond memories for me. All right. It's just unbelievable, folks, out there. DMV. So let me give you some really good news. Now, for Democrats, they hate this. They just hate this. I know it just, but you know something? You know what I love? Like, I met with a guy today. He was not a sex registrant, but he'd been in prison most of his life. And I got such a kick out of meeting with him because he really, he's not my age, he's younger, but he really wants, he's having trouble adjusting to the community because he's been locked up forever. In fact, he got so frustrated, he went down and knocked on the door of the jail and said, I want to turn myself in. And they said, why? They said, well, just check the records. There's probably a warrant for me in there somewhere. Said, I just want to turn myself in and go back to prison. Right? And I know I know the officer that came out. He's a great guy, Officer Houston. He's awesome. He's worked in it for years, and he's just the best. I mean, if you want a great government employee, he's it. He's a model. And he knows the guy, and he says, do we have a warrant for your arrest? He said, I'm sure there's something. He said, I've done all kinds of things wrong. He said, I just want to give myself up. And he said, well, let me go check. He said, there's nothing in here for you, dude. I can't. He said, well, I still want to come in. I just want to turn myself in and go back to prison. He said, I just can't handle it out here. Too crazy. And he said, well, I can't do it. So anyway, his son asked me to meet with him, and I had a great meeting with him today, and I'm going to find him. He's a heating and air guy, man. If we could get him some job. So what I like to see people successful. I like to see people that were down and out. They were strung out on drugs. They were sick. They were this, they were that. And now they're working. They're happy. They're back with their kids. That makes my day. I don't care how much I make. I've never been interested in money. That's like $1,000 bill to me right there, having lunch with that guy today. So when I saw this headline, 2.8 million people drop off food stamps under Trump. 2.8 million. That's amazing. 2.8 million. They left food stamps since Trump's first month in office, according to latest numbers from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, because food stamps are kept track of under the Department of Agriculture, of all things. So when Trump took office, over 42,000 people were on the food stamp system. But it's now down to 39 million. It's still a lot of people. Have you seen the help wanted signs around? I'm telling you, I saw a help wanted sign at a restaurant, and then I saw somebody, I don't know whether could have been a photoshopped ad on Facebook, that In-N-Out was hiring. But I saw a restaurant off Highway 20 had big deal, help wanted. Pretty cool. So Trump released an executive order on welfare reform in April that would require the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, to issue updated rules for those receiving benefits such as food stamps and get them connecting to the workforce. We're talking about single guys that don't have kids, right? USDA also hired an integrity officer. That's somebody that's a cop to keep you honest. And they also started in February, they rolled out a Harvest Box program to give food stamp recipients a box of shelf-stable food as a part of their monthly benefits package. In other words, good solid food. They just send it right to your door. Just like Amazon.com, you can, boom, just like you're on the premium plan, prime plan. Enrollment in the nation's food stamp program might plunge even further if work requirements are included in the Farm Bill going through Congress. There's a Farm Bill, and that Farm Bill includes all kinds of welfare for farmers that I'm not into, but it also includes money for food for people. Like even all these kids that all of a sudden, all these obese kids are food insecure. Did you know that? They're all fat. They look like the Michelin men. They got rolls on their arms, and they couldn't run around the block without getting huffed. And I could probably outrun most of these kids. And they're over there getting an extra burrito at the school, claiming because a lot of these liberals want to get everybody where the government just feeds everybody. Takes care of your housing, takes care of utilities, just takes care of everything. And then you just turn in all your money to the government, right? Do you ever see that old 1040? It was a spoof 1040. It was a IRS 1040 form, and it said, I saw it on the internet one time. You put your name, your address, your social security number, how much you made, and then at the bottom it just said send it all in, right? You see that? That's how this is headed. And then they'll take care of, they said, medical, we got you, right? Food, we got you, right? Food, fuel, yeah, we got you. We got everything. So Trump said recently he wanted to get work requirements for food stamps implemented at the federal level when the House during this farm bill. We'll see whether he can pull it off. And but I hope he does. You know something? What is it about it that all these pussies out there feel bad because they're asking people to contribute to the country that's giving them a handout all the time? People want to feel like they're contributing, right? I don't know. Maybe things have really changed. Maybe the generation today just doesn't got it, like the World War II generation. I'm telling you, my parents are just like, I think it's better off they're dead now. They would be horrified of what's going on today. Horrified. This is everything they fought against is what's happening without a fight. We're just giving it away. You up there sitting on your rear ends, getting a guy that just keeps, like Fletcher in the 5th District, just taxing, taking away your rights. You think, what rights he take? When they take away your money, that's your freedom. Tax you. Every time you turn around. Now we have a concept in church called tithing, right? And so tithing is like a 10% of your income, right? And you can give more. There's other types of giving like benevolence and in offerings and helping the poor, but there's tithing, 10%. Now when we go buy something, we're literally almost tithing to the government. Then you got to pay everything. There's not a bill I pay that there isn't a tax on. Everything. A few years ago, I had it was before I actually could get some of my Obama money back. I used to call it Social Security Obama money. But I was too young to collect, so I didn't have any health insurance. And my shoulder was killing me. So I went over and saw Dr. Berkey, and he said, Lou, your shoulder is messed up. But I can't tell what's there. I need to look in there, and you need to get an MRI. And he said, you don't have any insurance. They're really expensive. So he said, this is the orders for the MRI. Just go around and get some bids. There's a lot of MRI places in town. Get some bids. So I was getting ready to go to Vietnam. Instead of going and getting bids, I took that sheet with me, that order, and I got over to Vietnam, and I was doing my business over there, and So I went to the international clinic over there, and I said, hey, I need an MRI. What would you recommend? They said, oh, go to District 7 to the international hospital down there. So I called down there and got me, and next morning they hooked me up with a date for an MRI. I'd never had such a thing, right? And it was pretty impressive, actually. I thought, man, this is Vietnam. This is like first class. They could speak really good English, and I'd never been in one of those tubes before. It just like I got all panic attacked and everything. I had to really get control of myself. I thought I come all the way around the world. I was going to get a cheap MRI. I called him and I said, how much is an MRI? And the gal says, like $335 or something, right? And I said, hey, I thought they're cheaper than that. She said, hey, don't give me a hard time. She said, I used to work in San Jose. This Vietnamese gal, right? I said, hey, no problem. I want to get an MRI. Sign me up. So I went over there at 7 in the morning. I took a taxi over there, and they did it, right? And I said, well, I'm getting ready to fly back to the States. So when could I get the results? Because I need to carry the results back to the surgeon. And they said, oh, go upstairs and have breakfast. And the doctor needs to look at it and write it up. And we need to give you a disc, and we need to give you a hard copy. When I got done with breakfast, I came down, waited about 10 more minutes. And they brought out this cardboard carrying case, a very nice, very slim case, very nice case with the X-ray. You could look at them if you wanted, and then a disc if you wanted to put them on a computer, and then the write-up from the doctor telling what he found, the radiology doctor. And I said, okay, well, how much do you need? And they said, I was getting ready to pay $300-something. That's what they give me a bid on. And they said, Lou, it's just $130. I said, oh, you made a mistake because... They said, what do you mean? They thought I was thinking they overcharged me. I said, oh, no, you told me this much. Anyway, do we have to take a break? We're going to take a break. I'll tell you the rest of the story. Then I'm going to tell you about this surgeon down south that got into it with the government over MRIs. We'll be right back. Does that sound like Bob Bendorf from Yuba County singing there? Sounds like him, right? I was thinking about you guys at the break over there in Idaho. Boy, you need to be praying for us over there, all you refugees that are fled over to Idaho. I don't know whether you're in these camps over there trying to find a place to live, but you need to be praying for us over here that can't leave. We're stranded here. Can't figure out how to get out of the state. Well, I was talking about MRIs and why I'm getting into why the cost of medicine, drugs, medical procedures is so high. Very simple. So I was over in Vietnam, and I was down there in District 7, and I was at an international hospital. So in that hospital, there's all kinds of people from all over the world doing work, medical work. Lots of Vietnamese, but they're speaking English. And this guy took amazing care with a beautiful, beautiful room full of technology, cool stuff. And he slid me in that MRI and hooked me all up. And I went out, had breakfast afterwards, right up in the hospital, came down. They gave me this nice cardboard with a handle carrying case so I can go on the plane with it. Carried that back to Dr. Berkey, and I came in and I said, hey, I gave the x-rays to him, and the staff was all shocked because they thought, oh, it couldn't come out of Vietnam. So he hung those x-rays up on that, whatever that thing is, that light, and he said, Lou, these are great x-rays right here. And he saw what the problem was. So he said, how much did they cost you? It was $130. So I was at the break, before the break, I was telling you how I told them they charged me wrong. They undercharged me. They said, oh, undercharged you. I said, yeah, you told me it's going to be $300 and something. I said I was ready to pay that. They said, oh, no. You just said it was like a rotator cuff, and we thought we were going to have to do a lot more than when we saw the orders. So the orders said we didn't do that. We didn't do as much. So we're not charging you as much. I said, how often does that happen in America, right? Look out. So I paid $130 for a shoulder MRI. And so Dr. Berkey laughed when I told him the amount. And he said, there's hope for medicine. Maybe I should go to Vietnam to practice. So what happened, the reason I bring this up is a doctor named Gajendra Singh is suing the state of North Carolina. There's a concept in the medical community called a certificate of need, or a CON, C-O-N. So instead of any of us, if we were all, think of yourself as having a medical license and you decide, oh, I think I'll offer MRIs, or oh, I think I'll do this, or oh, I think I'll do that. You can't just do that in the medical business in a lot of states. You have to go to the state of California or state, and you have to say, I'd like to offer MRIs, and they'll say, well, in other words, it's all communist. It's socialist. In other words, they say, we're not going to authorize you to have it doing that. We got enough MRIs. They have to certify the need. Instead of like, if somebody like is selling a lot of donuts and they're doing really good, and you want to put a donut shop just ahead of them up the road, there's no state agency that said, we got enough donut shops in our town, or we got enough shops selling eggs, or we got enough shops selling tires, or sewing supplies, or headsets for listening to music, right? Or phones. There's nobody monitoring that. But for some reason, in certain areas, they say, in fact, I've seen it where they've tried to do it with contractors. They do a certificate of need. So in the medical business, years ago, they came up with this concept where the government had to okay who would get into that kind of business. And maybe it was because they wanted to make sure that they knew what they were doing. But what happens, it happens in every area that you license somebody to do anything, whether it's a contractor's license or a license to cut hair. The people that are already in the business want to make the hoops bigger to jump through so they can keep competition out. So what's happened is Gajendra Singh, a surgeon in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, he went in because he thought he had a problem. He was having some pain, an abdominal pain, and he went in to get an MRI. And they quoted him $1,200. And he thought, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. And he walked out. And he decided, I'm going to go into the imaging business, and I'm going to charge a reasonable amount to people. That's ridiculous, because if I'm walking away as a doctor, how about people that can't afford it? They're going to suffer and die, right? They're going to let something go. So he's an India-born surgeon with the last name of Singh. He's probably a Sikh, right? And the Indian-born surgeon decided he'd open his own imaging center in Winston-Salem and charge a lot less. So Singh launched his business in August and decided to post his prices. This the previous August, 2017. And some of his MRIs were $500, right? That's almost Vietnam style. And he hung a banner outside his office building and put it on his website, as low as $500 for an MRI. Well, you know, he got starting to get a lot of business, right? So the certificate of need concept gives hospitals a monopoly over MRI scans. So Singh ran into the state's buzzsaw of regulation. And they said, well, you can't have a permanent MRI in your office, but you could rent one a couple days a week, and we would allow that. But to rent an MRI and have it brought into his office was more expensive than just buying one outright. So his goal was to give people a less expensive MRI, and the best way to do that is to buy an MRI machine set up in his office. They wouldn't allow him to do that because they said that there wasn't a need. In other words, they protected all the present MRI businesses. So he says to this people doing this article. He says, as a surgeon, we need to see what we're going to do. We often need a lot of imaging. He said it's very helpful. Singh specializes in complex liver transplants and surgeries to the gastrointestinal area, including cancers. He treats cancers and he does transplants. So, because his office could only offer MRIs twice a week because of stupid law, that's why, so they had to turn away patients because everybody wanted that $500, as low as $500, right? They said, man, I'm sick and I can afford $500, but I can't. He said some of the ER MRIs were $10,000. Thousands of dollars. And so under North Carolina law, a medical provider must obtain a government permit, a certificate of need, if they want to offer certain new services or buy equipment. And every year, officials need to redetermine that. Look at all those jobs that people aren't accomplishing crap. They're not operating it. They just run around and they jack people up. I mean, they couldn't even survive in a real society. They just are bureaucrats. So if a state decides an area doesn't need a service, then other providers are barred from even applying for a permit. That's what Singh ran into. So he wasn't allowed to even apply to purchase a permanent MRI because state officials said, we don't think you need one over there. That's communism. That's socialism, people. The government shouldn't have any right. If somebody wants to buy an MRI and go broke because they can't get enough customers, that should be up to them. Just like if you want to start a business and you think it's all red hot and it's really stupid, you should be allowed to go completely broke. That's what they call creative destruction in capitalism. Well, Singh's attorneys estimate the entire process of applying for and defending a certificate of need can cost up to $400,000 just to try to do a business. Now, this is what we're facing at the Church of Glad Tidings. You know what, Neil, there's a guy over there in Public Works that he thinks he's some kind of a pharaoh over there. Neil Hay. And he said, you know that letter I read earlier, portions of it from that No Nuts attorney, Steve Gremlin, that slandered the church? This Neil Hay of the county says, you guys aren't going to get any permit over here unless you satisfy what's in this letter. Now, that means anybody can write a stupid letter like that, and then the recipients or the target of that letter now has to jump through some bureaucrat's hoops, and he wants to charge us like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for those fees. That guy's out of his mind. He's out of his friggin' mind. So a permanent MRI machine would cost Singh less than $750,000, but he's got to pay $400,000 in fighting legal issues to have a right to have an MRI machine in his office. Then he's got to go buy the stinking machine. Honestly, people, you wonder if you took that type of, it'd be the same thing as if a new car dealership or a new used car dealership wanted to start up. And they say, well, we got plenty of used car dealerships here. Why don't you go into like selling bananas? I want to do cars. I like cars. Oh, well, no, we got plenty of car dealerships. You know, state governments have tried to do this in other areas other than medicine. You wonder why? Think, whoa, I was in the hospital for 8 hours and it's $100,000, $50,000. How can it cost that much? So what's happening is Nicholas Bagley, University of Michigan health law professor, said certificate of need laws might have made sense back when healthcare was treated more like a public utility, but they make less and less sense under our current market-based healthcare ecosystem. Honestly, I don't see any market-based health ecosystem. I don't care whether Nicholas Bagley is a professor at the University of Michigan. He goes on to say I agree with him on this, they impose red tape. They slow down the adoption of new technologies, and they impair competition. Do you think if I was running Sutter County and somebody came along and said, we'll take care of the homeless problem for you, dude. We want to build these houses. I wouldn't charge them a nickel. I'd say, hey, let us look at your plans, make sure that they're going to be sturdy and safe, fire safe, and we'll do that for free because you're saving us a lot of money. You know, I was telling Dave Bryan, the pastor out there, one day when we went to build Building 500, which is an education building, I went in to pay the fees. They approved the plans, and I say, this is the amount of fees, and I brought a check in for that amount. And when I got there, they said, we made a mistake. I said, what do you mean you made a mistake? They said, well, we didn't add everything in. I said, that's your bad, man. You told me to bring in a check. I brought in a check. The guys at the church wrote me a check out for that amount. He said, well, we're sorry. I said, well, what fees did you leave out? He said, well, your impact on public safety. I said, wait a minute. We're actually a positive impact on public safety. We're straightening people's lives out. We're giving cops less business than more business. They said, oh, no, you don't understand. We have a new building. We got to patrol it. We got to shoot it with water if it catches on fire. So we had to go back and pay more money after that. Now, you would think that government would help you be successful in helping people straighten out lives. But we got cussed out by a detective for even thinking about that, even though we weren't even housing them on the campus. He said they could attend another church, but they can't attend Glad Tidings. That's an interesting concept, isn't it? That's somebody that's got way too much power. I don't know whether it's the holster and then taser and the cuffs, and maybe he's arrested too many people. He thinks he's bigger than his britches, as they say. But then you would think that if the administrator of the county really loved people, they would bend over backwards to put us in the business of helping more people. You know, it's interesting. Some of the committee members that came out to do a walkthrough of the church facilities when they were trying to figure out, well, where should we put, if we're going to build this building to house people, where should we put it? And we introduced them to a lot of people, Jeff, and Roy, and different people that were homeless, right? And rode around on bicycles and were sleeping out of doors. And now they sleep indoors. And for the first time in their life, they're not going to prison, and they're contributing to society. They're earning money. They don't owe any child support debt. They paid all that off, but they don't get any credit. Nobody gets any credit for that because it wasn't a government program. But you watch when these millions of dollars flow into Scott Thurman's pocket and Scott Mitnick's pocket and all these Sutter County government. It helps fund Sutter County government. What are we going to get out of that? A bunch of bureaucrats that won't do jack diddly but sit behind an air-conditioned office and behind a desk in an air-conditioned office and sip their coffee and talk trash and send memos and send emails and do personal business and then touch the rear end of their secretary every once in a while. That's what they're up to. Now, that's what this is all about. And if you ever get to believing it's about anything else than that, then look down at your boots and see if somebody ain't urinating on your boots and telling you that it's sprinkling outside. But that's exactly what's going on. So when you go to the doctor and you think, what in the world? How is this so expensive? And you think, oh, because some bureaucrat who can't figure out how to do anything productive with his life has told some doctor that he can't have an MRI unless he wants to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to contest it in court. We can't have just normal competition in medical, right? So it's kind of like the Moody Church back in Chicago who wanted to help poor kids because they felt that, not because they're going to make any money on it or get a grant or get their name in lights, but because they felt that was a mandate from Jesus that they ought to help youngsters and help them with their math and give them a cookie or a piece of celery or a lunch and help tutor them and help maybe clothe them, help give them a positive day. But the government had to harass them and take them to court over that and wanted to actually tax them even though people were volunteering. Now, you know something? That kind of stupid thinking, somebody ought to just take those people out back of a warehouse and just jack slap them and send them on their way. Right? That's just stupid. But that's the exact type of government that caused people to leave England and other parts of Europe and take a very dangerous trip. It was not a jet stream. It wasn't a jet plane. It was a very dangerous trip to get here and a gnarly trip, and to step off not to no infrastructure and no safety and nothing, just total wildness. That's people that are pretty pissed off, right? You got to be in a bad way and sick of it to leave. And so we got text last week by another couple that are really involved here politically in a conservative vein, said, we're done. We sold our house. We're moving to Idaho. Just wanted to let you know we'll be listening with the other group over there. And we're going fishing with them, by the way. So that's what's happening here. And let me tell you, unless you say something, do something, or say, ain't going to do that, I don't care whether that's a rule or not, that is stupid. I'm not going to do that and deal with the consequences. It's just like my friend that just spent all these years in prison. He said, I'd rather go back to prison. He said, the parole officer was giving him a hard time. He said, just stop right there and just take me back to prison, right? He said, oh, well, I wouldn't want to take you to prison. We said, I don't want to fuss with you. You're a youngster. I've been 30, 40 years. My life's over. So let's just hook me up, and jail's good for me. Just send me to jail and hook me up for prison, right? So at some point, it's like Alan Yuan. Alan Yuan was did 25 years in a communist labor camp. And when they let him out, because he was a pastor, right? And when they let him out, I visited him in Beijing in his house. We smuggled Bibles into Beijing and took them right in front of a guard. He was on house arrest. And so he told us how he took a 55-gallon drum, filled it with water right out there in the middle of the town square, and they would baptize right in front of the police. And he just said, hey, I already missed 6 kids raising all my kids. So he says, my life's over. You can shoot me, torture me, kill me, poison me, take my organs out, put me in prison. It's like, hey, it's good. Like, let's get it on, right? At some point, you just say, something, this is so stupid. Just draw your weapons, draw your gun, do something stupid, take me to jail. It's just like, do what you got to do. Jesus said, do what you got to do, right? It's like, hey, I got this. I know where I'm headed. Do what you got to do. At some point, folks, you're going to have to make if you want something different in California, you're going to have to do some radical changes in how you've been operating. Otherwise, you're just going to get really stupidness in your future. And I'm old enough. I got enough my dad left to me, and know what he sacrificed in World War II. I ain't putting up with a bunch of stupid stuff, and that's and shaming my family name to let somebody come out and cuss at us and try to tell us we're doing something we ain't doing. You guys are just you've run off the rails over there in Sutter County. So we're calling it a day here, and hope you enjoyed the show. And if you didn't, so what? We'll see.